Hello, and thank you for allowing us to present on behalf of Johns Hopkins Imaging and our approach to a new and novel staffing model. I am Nia Jewel-Leek, and we are joined by Jason Metcalf and Melanie Minhas, and we are Group 3. What we will do today is give a background on Johns Hopkins Imaging. We will discuss and explain our objective, the research we have done, and our approach to producing a solution, our methodology, the business tools that we use, and then we will conclude with a summary and potential problems as we approach future planning. So background on Johns Hopkins Imaging. Johns Hopkins Imaging, LLC, is an independent clinical entity of Johns Hopkins Health System. There are 4 outpatient community facilities as well as 2 hospitals. The 2 hospitals and one of the outpatient community facilities compose the National Capital Region. Within this radiologic group, readings of images are done by both the community as well as the academic radiologists. The academic radiologists are physically located at Bayview Hospital and Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and the community radiologists are at the remaining sites. There are residents from Johns Hopkins and Bayview that play a minor role in the locations through moonlighting. The community radiologists are more productive than the academic radiologists because they are dedicated solely to clinical duties. And through the National Capital Region and through all of the entities, there is a collaborative reading program. Our objective was to determine a staffing model of community radiologists in order to staff an additional community radiology site in Maryland. Within this model, we hope to determine the ideal number of radiologists for this particular site. We need to determine whether or not it should be staffed by a subspecialist versus a general radiologist. We need to determine what is the best collaborative agreement with either the National Capital Region or the academic entities. What is the role for ancillary staffing arrangements so that we may maintain optimal productivity within this additional community site? We need to determine an algorithm for who addresses the marketing and the growth opportunities in that location. And we need to optimize the relationships between the radiologic facilities as well as the actual radiologists who are staffing and reading the studies.
Nia, thank you. My name's Jason. I'm going to tell us a little bit about the research we've been able to drum up since we started the project. We had the chance to interview Dr. Batuli, the director of the Bethesda JHI Outpatient Center, and it was really insightful. He's also a member of the NCR, and we did this in an effort to understand the business needs of an imaging center similar to the proposed JHI Columbia Outpatient site. We learned a lot. We learned that ancillary staffing arrangements, work queues, and entrepreneurial thought play an important role in managing an imaging center's business operations and profitability. We learned that economies of scale, in this case, joining a larger medical system, fostered the use of centralized support systems, support that allows center leadership to deal with community issues as they develop without causing disruption to center output. We also learned that center directors and subspecialists participate weekly in community outreach conferences, which leads to better relationships and referrals. At this particular site, they mentioned oncologists like to come to these conferences and ask a lot of questions. It seemed really like a great bonding experience. From this information, we decided to create a staffing model that centers around one community JHI medical director / subspecialist per shift and one contracted pay-per-service medical doctor. We looked at the local coverage determinations and realized that a non-radiologist could actually be in-house to cover things like procedures with contrast reactions that would allow the medical director subspecialist to have his time freed up to deal again with more community outreach type stuff. As far as methodology, we want to conduct these interviews. We'd like to get, a few more if possible, do site visits, and continue to do internet research and reconcile local coverage determination with CPT codes and see what we can actually do within the regulations that exist. And then as far as market research itself, the industry is growing and has continued to grow rapidly with the onset of more insurance options and so forth. So that is our plan there. And Melanie, would you tell us about the business tools?
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Our group is using business tools in an effort to assess everything that could potentially impact the success of our project. As consultants for our client, failure to consider the key strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities can lead to poor business decisions. Hence, we performed the SWOT analysis. And second business tool we used was to understand the macro environment using the PASTEL approach that helped us to sort through strategic decision-making to make better conclusions. When we look at our SWOT analysis, we have to determine our greatest strength of the community, that the community physicians were able to accommodate more than their fair share of patients, and understood the output and input of the site demand. This provided a greater comfort to the patients and added a level of convenience for the community as physicians dedicated their time solely to the office. However, our weakness was that since the scans were procured at other locations, there was limited feedback and therefore a larger disconnect. Another weakness is that they lacked a subspecialist on site and radiologists were then more generalist. Looking at our threats, of course, competition will be always there. Expenses to create a new site, and also the tension between academic and community radiologists. Finally, an opportunity is that building a new platform will bring about better profitability and growth potential due to the high traffic area. There are relationships to build within the National Capital Region, or NCR, and Johns Hopkins Imaging that would help facilitate increased opportunities to leverage greater referral systems. Our PASTEL approach, we decided to look at the scope to understand our environment. In an effort to build a new staffing model, we must understand the political aspect of employment law and legal ramifications of regulatory and regulations to create an employment model. Taking into economics, our biggest challenge is to be cost effective while taking into account salaries and growth opportunities from the referral basis. Socially, building our referrals comes from looking at the relationships between NCR and JHI, radiologists, of course, and the patient satisfaction. Environmentally, this also means how to conservatively coverage the time and distance for the academic radiologists. Finally, our technological aspect for our analysis is to determine the formation of queues or pools of study and who and how the different sites will manage reading these films. In summary, and our main points from our project is to successfully integrate the staffing model of our community radiologists into new sites. In doing so, we hope to build relationships with NCR and JHI to increase the inflow of patients and to market better growth opportunities. Our work plan is thus to create a central work support in an effort to optimize productivity, efficiency, while improving overall quality. Next, Nia will highlight some potential problems.
So some of the potential problems that we need to prepare for is the dynamic growth that these radiology sites have seen over the last 3 to 5 years, and we know and anticipate will continue to grow. We need to be able to have a model that can adjust and change to the growing market. We also know the economies of scale, some of those benefits may not be balanced between Johns Hopkins Imaging and the academic institutions. So there's some political management that we need to be able to be flexible in addressing, as well as the fact that there may be less opportunity for market development if our staffing model is so stringent that our radiologists cannot develop those community relationships. So Jason, you're on mute.
Thank you. As far as future plans, we want to determine an algorithm for addressing marketing and growth opportunities. Also, we want to optimize relationships between radiological facilities and radiologists based on staffing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.